What's up, guys? Welcome back to my garage. Today's episode, we're gonna get this engine out of here. Like I said, I want to get this whole thing washed, cleaned, scrubbed down, prepped, and then painted so I can drop it back in the engine. We don't have to do too much taking it apart, just getting it cleaned up and painted so it looks nice. So I've been kind of in here for now, a little bit just looking around, and there's a lot of stuff you need to undo if you're not as far as I am. Obviously you got to take your carbs off, all that stuff to get this far, which I've done in previous videos. Undo your spark plug wires, any other wiring you have. There's some wires going to the motor that you're gonna have to undo. Breather hose there, ground wire, I still have to undo the ground wire. But yeah, there's a lot to take apart to get this out. So basically, once you get this far as me, you have to come in here and there's a drive shaft rubber boot, and literally this just, you gotta just pull this off. You have these tabs you grab and you just pull it back, and it exposes these bolts in here, and you undo these four like brass colored looking bolts. I don't know if they're probably not brass, but they just kind of have a goldish color to them. You're gonna undo those, and there's four of them, and you can rotate that by spinning your wheel. So if you can get the two on this side and then move the bike forward, and then you should be able to access the other two. That'll disengage the drive shaft from the motor. Then we have mounting bolts here in the back of this, what do you call this? Peg thing. There's a mounting bolt that goes right through the motor there. Then there's a bracket in the front. 3 bolts here, and some dust. That's got to be undone. Obviously, if your exhaust isn't off, you got to take your exhaust off. I mean, there's a lot. You got to strip down a lot to get to this point. But yeah, I'm gonna do that today. I'm gonna get all these final bolts out. On this side, we have the same thing, same mounting bracket. Over here is that bolt that goes all the way through. Like I said, these wires have already been disconnected, so we don't have to go that far. But yeah, so I'm gonna get everything disconnected and loose. Actually, first I'm gonna do is drain the oil in here. Down here we have the oil filter. So I'm gonna open that up, get all the oil out of it, I think. And yeah, just kind of get it as ready to be pulled out as I can. I don't know if there's anything else I need to do or tell you about, but yeah, I'm just gonna hop in a time lapse and start tinkering away at all that. Alright, so everything is now disconnected and this motor is completely loose. Kind of hard to tell, but it's sitting in there pretty heavy, so I definitely am going to need a hand to remove this. But you know, you have that bracket that holds it here. There's like a spacer that goes in here with a cross tube, goes across from there, and then there's a very long bolt that goes in between those, holds to both brackets. One bracket's on that side, one bracket's on this side. So that bolt goes through, connects the bracket to the engine, and then the bracket sits here. 2 bolts. Down here we have another bolt holding the engine. That one's directly connected. As you can see, there's like a little bushing right there, and a bolt, long decent sized bolt, goes through there and connects those two. So you just connect those two to free up the front of the bike. In the rear we have this boot. Like I showed you, you pop that off and you have those bolts that you undo. There's 4 of them. I found that if I put the bike in gear, it would lock the wheel up so you could break it free. Otherwise you'd be just turning the wheel. As you tried and spun that, the whole shaft would turn and turn the wheel. So if you put the bike in gear, it'll lock it down. And then I would do the 2 wrench trick so you have extra leverage to bust those free. Once you do all that, those 4 bolts come off pretty easily. And again, you'll be able to access 2, and you'll have to move the bike forward to spin this around to get to the other 2. So it's a little fidgety, but not that difficult. There's some wires you got to disconnect. You have a starter wire here. This can disconnect from the solenoid over there. This is a breather hose that went to the carburetor. This is, I don't know what this is, but disconnect that too. There's some other stuff. Grounding wire that connects to the frame somewhere over here in this vicinity. Disconnect that. And then yeah, you're pretty much free after that. So unfortunately I am not gonna be able to do this by myself, so I'm gonna have to call some help. So hopefully in the next frame or next scene change, you'll see me and my buddy or brother-in-law pulling this engine out. But yeah, she's all ready to go. Oh, the other thing is on the bottom here, you can see the engine kind of sticks like 2 inches lower than the frame. So basically the engine, you're gonna have to pull off the oil filter. So I'm gonna have to remove, see if I can point that to you. I'm gonna have to remove this oil filter again to give some more clearance. But even with the oil filter off, it's about 2 inches lower than the frame. Obviously that has to come up to clear the frame when you pull it out of the side. And on the top you can see you've got about 2.5, 3 inches up there. So that should, if I pull the oil filter off, lift it up, give clearance. I tried taking the valve cover off to try and give some more clearance, but there's gears and a chain right in there. So even with the cover off, it doesn't really add any clearance, so better just leave it on. On this side again, same thing. You got the brackets with the holes through, bolt down there and everything. And then here is what that hardware looks like. So this is the brackets that go through the top of the motor on the front. These are the bolts that hold the bottom of the front of the motor. And this is the rear, oh, I don't know if I showed you that. In the back, you also have a bolt right here that goes through. And that goes through the rear sets and goes all the way through again. So that's this long bolt right here. So again, you just break that and pull it out. You might have to kind of lift the engine up from underneath to remove any tension on the bolt and slide it out. But yeah, again, it's free now. So just gotta get a buddy over here to pull that out. All right, no more engine. It's right there. So I didn't film pulling it out. My brother-in-law came over. Thanks a lot, Scott, for helping me out with this. Came over and we were just moving real fast, just trying to get it done. So 2 people, it wasn't too complicated. One thing we had to do was pull out those oil lines. So I have an aftermarket oil cooler on here, and that's because I think this bike originally had fairings. I think I've said that in previous videos, possibly even in this video. But yeah, so there was 2 oil bungs coming out of here, and those had lines, but we had to remove those because the frame was getting hung up on it when we were trying to lift it up. So had to just kind of unscrew those, pull them out. They were a 5/8 wrench SAE, so that was a little confusing. I put these little bolts in here just to keep the holes blocked. Luckily I had some random bolts lying around, so I threw those in there temporarily. Because I am going to pressure wash this motor and then scuff it real nice, sand it, prime it, paint it, all that good stuff down the line. So we got that coming up on this. It's a lot of work to do there. But basically this engine runs, everything's good on it. I just want to get it all cleaned up, make it look real nice, paint it black. I might sand the fins, so these have a nice aluminum look, so everything will be black with sanded fins. Sand these fins as well. We'll see. I don't know. I'm still playing around with all that, figure out all that stuff, but definitely need to clean it, get all this muck, dirt, 40 years of oil, grease, and whatever off of it. But there it is. I put it on one of these Harbor Freight dollies. Very easy way to move it around. So we had to pull the oil filter housing off to get the motor out to make more clearance, but we did put it back on before putting it on the dolly. So now that's how she'll sit for a while. Everything else was pretty easy. Make sure you get, it's gone now because I pulled it off, but make sure you completely remove that rubber boot. You pull it off because the plate right here was getting hung up on that too, so you want that off too if you're pulling this motor at home. But yeah, other than that, it wasn't too hard. We used the jack with 2 wood blocks to jack up the engine about an inch or so it would clear the frame, and then we just pretty much slid it out once everything was cleared. With 2 people picking it up wasn't too hard. So that's going to conclude this week's episode. It is like 100 degrees in my garage right now, and I'm sweating and dying, and I've been in here for 3 hours. So I want to go sit inside, enjoy some TV, and just relax in my AC. Maybe I'll come out tomorrow and pressure wash that. We'll see. I don't know yet. So if after this frame follows pressure washing, I obviously did that. If not, thanks for watching this week, and we'll see you next time. Peace.